We begin with some breaking news. The Trump administration reached a settlement with the Skadden Arps, Slate and Meagher firms. The law firm was just one of the targets in executive orders aimed at firms with prior associations to Trump's political enemies. CBS News Department of Justice correspondent Scott MacFarlane has been following the story for us. He joins us now. Thanks for being here. Tell us more about this law firm and how other law firms chose to go a different direction with the Trump administration.
This is a quickly escalating story and cascading broadly and widely. The Skadden firm, among other things, handles some Wall Street clients. They also handle clients who challenge some of that 2020 election conspiracy nonsense, the baseless claims made about the 2020 election, including in Georgia. That may be partly how they got on President Trump's radar. But before the president could issue any executive order to strip the Skadden firm of security clearances or the ability to do business with government clients or in government buildings, they, according to the president, have cut a deal where they've agreed to do $100 million in pro bono, not for pay, legal work of organizations that will be in some way under the president's approval or something he would indirectly be okay with. This is a settlement of sorts. A different major firm called Paul Weiss also agreed to a deal with the president to get off of their radar to do about $40 million of pro bono work. But there are other firms that are challenging this, going to court saying these executive orders targeting law firms are unlawful and violations of the First Amendment and need to be fought lest they metastasize into more executive orders against more of America's law firms.
Scott, you know, when we hear this, talking about law firms, it almost sounds like an inside Washington, D.C. issue. But how does this really affect Americans overall?
Oh, it could easily be conflated for a Washington, D.C. story because these are obscure names none of us has ever heard of. You know, Paul Weiss and Jenner and Block and Skadden and Wilmer Hale. To a degree, a lot of folks even in Washington weren't aware who these firms were until they heard this news. But what's being threatened here is a stripping of law firms' ability to do their jobs. You take away a lawyer's security clearance or his ability or her ability to go to a federal building or work with federal agencies, they cannot work. The firms would be on a death sentence. You start crippling law firms that will challenge the federal government over a late Social Security check, a delayed veterans benefit. How about a federal worker in the community who lost his or her job or has some issue with back pay? You take away the lawyers, they can't challenge it. They'll go without that veterans benefit, without that Social Security check, without that job. And that is the prospect, attorneys say, facing Americans in every community. These law firms get starved or depleted. There's nobody willing to take your case and go face to face with the president who is stripping law firms of their ability to do business.
Yeah, wider reach effort there. Okay, Scott, before we let you go here, the Trump administration is asking the Supreme Court to intervene in the case involving deportation flights of Venezuelan migrants to an El Salvador prison. So what is the argument there?
This thermodynamically hot dispute over those deportation flights of Venezuelan nationals has been exploding because a court froze the ability of the administration to use the Alien Enemies Act, that 1798 law, to expedite the deportation of nationals from another country. That pause has been extended till mid-April. The judges, the courts want to hear a lot more of arguments about the use of this 18th century law, why the deportations have to happen that way versus the traditional way in which somebody being deported can go to court and try to challenge it if a mistake has been made. Until that's all handled by the courts, they're going to continue to freeze those deportations. But the Trump administration has just gone to the Supreme Court asking them to intervene so they can resume those Alien Enemies Act deportations. It's unclear where this is headed legally, but it's quite clear the Trump administration likes this issue politically, though, to keep it front and center. They like the issue of arguing over their ability to deport alleged gang members.
All right, Scott MacFarlane, as always, thank you so much.